Hi, everybody. Nice to see you, sort of. um, my name is Kara Ebbutt, and I am a grad student at Agnes College. And this workshop is a really just basic introduction to Tableau. So I'm glad that you're here. And hi, Enda, thanks. Um, so this should just be a really fun walkthrough on how to upload a data set to Tableau Public and just create some charts and a dashboard. So we'll walk through what that process looks like. If you've used Tableau before, then this will all be extremely familiar to you. If you haven't, then this should be hopefully a lot of fun and interesting. So if you already have an account at Tableau Public, I highly encourage you to walk along with and do the process at the same time. That way you can get a feel for what it's like to be working in the software and playing with all the data. Thanks for all the hellos, everybody. Nice that you're here. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let you guys see kind of what we will be doing. All right, so I think you should be able to see this intro to Tableau slide. If anybody wants to give me a little thumbs up, or maybe not thumbs up, I'm reading that's not the way to go, but just you can see my screen, that would be great. So like I said, this is just an intro to Tableau. I called it Finding Your Sweet Spot because we're going to be working with candy data. Candy is one of my favorites, and it's candy season here, so that's where we're going to be headed. What we're going to do just during this workshop today is we'll connect some data to Tableau Public. We will, thanks Cindy and Adita, we'll build a couple of charts. We will create filters for some of those charts, but not all of them. And then once we get the charts put together, we'll put together a dashboard and combine them all. If there's time, we'll even make a sort of navigation buttons on the dashboard, but we'll see how long everything takes. And then I always like to point out, definitely there will be some mess ups and we'll figure out how to fix them because that's pretty much how it always is with software, I find. So I like to set expectations appropriately from the beginning. Here's just a smidge about me. I got my bachelor's degree in physics from Agnes a long time ago. I spent a decade doing end user software training for database reporting tools. Then I spent a decade raising kids and doing tech consulting. And just recently, I decided to go back to grad school in pursuit of a PhD. So right now I'm finishing up my master's degree in data analysis and communication at Agnes again. I live in Portland, Oregon, which I don't know if you can see the sun shining in. We don't usually have the sun. So this is delightful. Anyway, so that's where I am out in Portland, Oregon. Agnes is in Atlanta, so I'm doing their virtual master's program. It's been great so far. All right, so before we get started, I'll show you what the final is going to look like. Let me open this window a little bit more and see. It's not letting me expand it. Well, we'll just move along. So this is the basic dashboard that we're going to build. Reloading. I'm hoping you can all see that. Over here on the left, we have an overall ranking of the different types of candy that are included in the database that we're going to download. So you can see it starts with Reese's Miniature, etc. And over here, it shows how many times that candy won in sort of the win percent in the database that we're looking at. Over here in the upper right-hand corner, you see we just have a simple scatter plot of the sugar percentile of a particular candy versus the win percent that it had within the data collect. So you can kind of see that as the sugar goes up, the wins go up too, which is not a big surprise. And then down in the lower right of the dashboard, we have a little comparison here. I know at our house, we're very competitive. And so we always like to compare things. So if you compare my favorite candy, we'll pretend it's Almond Joy, to my husband's favorite candy, which is definitely Junior Mints. You'll see that, oh, mine costs more and has more sugar. That's a bummer, but that's okay. It's still my favorite. So this is kind of where we're going to be going today. If you want to download the data set that I was working with, it's here. Let me pop that link into the chat for you guys. You can download that data set if you'd like. It's just here. It'll download a zip file for you, and then you can extract it, and you'll pull out a CSV file that's called candy-data. That's got all of the information you will need if you want to go ahead and work on this dashboard at the same time as I do. So back in Tableau, what you want to do, if you haven't already, is just go to public.tableau.com and then go ahead and log in. Once you're logged in, you'll see screens that look a little bit more like these shots that I show you over here. You won't have that viz that I had up. But what you will see in the upper left-hand corner is an option called Create. And if you click Create, then you should see Web Authoring just underneath it. So I'll come back to my Tableau and show you what that looks like. So just up here in the upper left, you'll see Create. When you hover over that, you get this menu, and Web Authoring is one of your options. So you just click Web Authoring, and it'll open up this Connect to Data screen. Interesting. Never gotten that timeout before. Let's try that again. Well, as I said, we're going to mess up and figure things out. We'll sign in. There we go. So this is what it'll look like when you guys sign in. You'll get the actual viz of the day. Pop up to Create, Web Authoring. Fingers crossed it does what we wanted. Yep. So from here, this is where you're going to upload whatever data file you happen to be working with. So we'll click Upload here. It brings me to my files that I want. We'll grab the CSV. And then this is what you see. So this is where you can start to get a feel for the data that you're working with, what all of your field names are. If you haven't already done that in Excel, you have a little bit of a chance to do that here in the front side of Tableau. So the first thing I want to do from here is just direct your attention down sort of in the lower portion of your screen. You can see all of your field names. So we have competitor name, that's the name of our candy. We have chocolate, whether it's chocolatey or not chocolatey, fruity, whether it's obviously fruity or not fruity. If you see this button here on the right, just to the lower right, you can click Update Now, and it should populate your screen with the actual data that you're going to be working with. So here's where we can see the name of the specific candy, and you can start to see that within the columns of data, we're looking at binaries. So everything is either a 0 or a 1. That's important to know as you're sort of working through how to display your data and decide what kind of charts you want to show and how to work with the information. So before we leave here, I don't love all of these column names, so I'm just going to change a few while we're right here in Tableau. So to do that, just over here where we looked at the beginning at the field names, you can click a little drop down arrow and you can choose rename. It's that second menu option. So we're going to call competitor name candy name. I'll let you guys know up front, I'm a dreadful typist. So if you see a typo, let me know. We're going to move on down, and I'm going to change this field that's called peanutty almondy. And I'm just going to rename it nuts. So that lets us know if there are any nuts in the candy. We may or may not be using that later if we have time. Further on down, some fields that I definitely want to change are this sugar percent. We're going to call that just plain sugar. I'm going to change price percent to just be price. Then I'm just going to do a wee edit on win percent and call it, I'm just adding a space and call it win percent. There we go. So those are just the 5 field names that we're going to change for now. Once that is all done, there's nothing else that I wanted to change at this level. So I'm going to go ahead and click Sheet 1. And hopefully soon it'll pop up a blank sheet for me to work on. You might run into, I've run into this a couple of times depending on what's I guess, happening on Tableau Public. Sometimes that screen will take upwards of 5 minutes and then it'll time out, and I just try again, and it tends to work. So if you run into an odd error there, don't panic. That is pretty straightforward. All right, so moving on to our first sheet. The first one we're going to make, if you remember, on the far left of that dashboard that I showed you earlier, was just the overall rankings of all the different candies. So I always start by renaming my sheet so that I can keep track of things later on. So down here in the lower left of your window, you can just click on sheet 1. If you right click, it'll pop up a menu for you. You can choose rename. I'm just going to call this rankings with my extra capitals that I always do. Now we're working on our ranking sheets. And what I want to do at this point is start putting data onto my sheet. My very brilliant professors always talk about understanding which one is your measure and which one is your dimension, what is your qualitative and what's your quantitative, and understanding which will go in rows and which will go in columns. That's brilliant, and they've been doing this for a very long time. As more of a newcomer, I tend to just throw data onto the dashboard, into my sheet, and see what happens. I do know that in this one, because I want horizontal bars, and I want my candy names to be listed down on the left-hand side, I'm going to take candy name, which is up here. I should talk about this. This is called your data pane over here in the left-hand side. So you'll see data is selected right now, and it's going to list for you all of the fields and columns that you have in your CSV or your Excel spreadsheet. So this is where you're going to grab bits and pieces to start building your charts. So I'm going to take candy name, and I'm going to pull that over and drop it in this rows area right here. And you'll see it gives me a list of all the different candies. Tableau calls this a pill. I forget to call it that, but that's what it's officially called. So this is where we're going to see our candy name in our rows, and you'll notice that it's blue. So anything that is a dimension, sort of string-based characters, that's going to be blue, and any of our numeric fields are going to show up as green. Those are called our measures. So the measure we want to look at right now is win percent, because we want to compare that amongst all the candies. So again, over on the left, I'm going to sort of scan down here until I find win percent. It's near the bottom. Then I'm just going to click and drag and drop that and put that into columns. So now you see we're starting to have more of that bar chart that we were looking at, horizontal bars. The first thing I noticed that it's a little bit out of order. I always like to see winners at the top if I can. So I'm going to do a quick sort on this. I think it's easy to just come right up here to this toolbar. If you look just above where your columns and rows are sitting, you'll see two different sorting options. One is ascending and the other is descending. I like descending for this. So I'm just going to give that a quick click, and you'll see then that Reese's peanut butter is at the top and all of our wins go down from there. So now we can see our most favorite candies apparently nationally here in the States. These are the ones people prefer in their trick-or-treating baskets if you're a trick-or-treating Halloween kind of person. The next thing, when I'm just sort of looking at this, all of the blues tend to meld together to me on all of these bars. I think it would be easier to see what's going on if those bars were different colors. It'll give sort of the viewer's eye different things to land on. So what we're going to do is take candy name again over here from our data pane, and where I'm going to drag it is to this marks section. So if you notice this area just here, this is where you get to make a lot of the fun changes. I think this is the fun place to play in Tableau. You can change your color, you can change the size of things, you can add labels and tooltips. So this is a really great area when you're just kind of figuring out what you want your data to look like. So again, I'm going to take candy name, I'm going to drag it over and drop it right onto color. And when I do that, it's going to think for a minute, and you'll see that it changes the color of all of the different candies. They get a unique color identifier. The other thing it did was it dropped a legend here. I don't tend to use legends in this particular dashboard. We're not going to need them. So I'm going to hide it. The easiest way to do that is just up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see there's a drop-down arrow. If you click that, at the very bottom, you can hide your legend, and then you can see your data a little bit better again. So here we are. We have our candies sorted. We have, I believe it is being recorded. So yeah, this session is recorded, so I think that'll be available to you when things are done. I also have a slide deck of step-by-step instructions of what we're doing here. I forgot to mention that, so I'll put a link to that in the chat when the session's over, and that way you guys can grab it if you want to redo this on your own at a later time. All right, so colors. So we have the colors here. Let's say you're not really into this particular palette that Tableau chose. You want to make something maybe a little more fall, or maybe you prefer greens or whatever floats your boat. So the easy way to do that is to just come right over here. You can click the color box tab. And when you do, it'll give you the option to edit the colors. So then you can just click edit colors. And in here you have a lot of different options. For today, we're just going to keep it simple. I'm going to choose one of the included color palettes that they have. And as I was digging around in here, I landed on Miller Stone. It kind of looks like the color of candy wrappers, and it's a little fallish. It doesn't have very many different options, but what I mean is Miller Stone only has, it looks like 11 different color choices, but that works for what we're doing today. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that, and then click Assign Palette. And if you noticed right down here, you can see some of our color bars change. So we're going to close that, and you can see now that the color palette is a little bit different for our candy bars, and it's just a little bit more fall themed in keeping with what we want to do. All right, what else? Oh yeah, let's change the title of this. So just up here, right above our chart, you'll see there's an area. As I move my mouse around, you can see that it kind of gets a square around it, and then the square goes away. Yep. So this is the title of our chart. What Tableau does automatically is it'll pull in whatever you named your sheet. So just like down here when we called it rankings, Tableau pulled that sheet name in to be the chart name. I want to change that. So I'm just going to double click it, and it'll open up this editing window. And then here in this editing window, I don't want it to be the sheet name. Instead, I'm going to have it say overall rankings. I also would like it to be bold, and I want it to be centered over the chart. And just for kicks, I'm going to make it 18. That seems reasonable. And I'll go ahead, click apply, and OK. So now you'll see that the overall rankings has moved to the center. It's a little bit easier to see because we bolded it and made it larger. So that is good to go. I am going to expand this out. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger so we can see better. Some other little things to consider when you're making a visualization are how much data do you need in your actual chart? Actually, I think the better way to say this is, how can you make your chart easiest to read, right? So the more things people have to scan with their eyes, and the more extraneous data they try to take in, the more muddled your information is going to get. So it's really a great idea when you think you're done with the chart, take another look at it and see if there's something that maybe is unnecessary, or if there's a way you can make a particular piece of information easier for your users to access. So in this case, I'm going to direct your attention down here to our x-axis, just at the bottom. So this is where, as you'll see, it tells us the win percent, or how many times a particular candy won in the contest that was held between all of these candies. So it's pretty straightforward. It looks like it goes from 0 to 80. You can see that at the top, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup has a little over an 80% win rate. That's great, except my eyes have to go up Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, over to here, and then scan all the way down to guess a little over 80. That's not super convenient for me or your chart readers. So what we're going to do today is change that. We're going to put those numbers actually up next to the bars so that people don't have to scan their eyes up and down to find all of that information. So the first thing I'm going to do is hide this. They call it a header. We're going to hide it entirely. So if you right click, you'll notice the menu that pops up. You can edit your axis. I'm not going to bother doing that because I don't even want to see it. We're just going to turn off show header. And when you do that, you'll see that that x-axis entirely disappears. But now we need to know our win percent. So we're going to come back over here to my favorite place, the marks panel. So we're going to take win percent from the left, from the data pane, and just drag it over. And you'll see the label box. That's where we're going to drop win percent. And when you do that, you should see that now out to the right of each candy's bar, it'll tell you the win percent for that particular candy and how many times it was in our database. So now if you're wanting to see how many times peanut M&Ms won, you can just scroll right over and see that it's about 69.5, and it sits right between Butterfinger and Three Musketeers. Sometimes to my own detriment, and one of my professors teases me about it, I like to have everything as simple as possible. So in this case, I think the 2 decimals is a little bit excessive and not really necessary. So I would like to change that and just have it be a 1 decimal number. So to do that, in my marks section over here, I can just see where the pill is for win percent. We'll just click that down arrow. And about a third of the way down, you see an option to format your number. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to reformat the number here. So you just choose that. Notice it's automatic, so it's just kind of pulling it and doing what it needs to do. I'm going to change it specifically to number with that radio button, and then I'm going to lower my decimal places to just be 1. I think that's a little bit easier to read. It makes it just more intuitive for viewers. So we're done with that. And then the very last thing we're going to do, I'm going to scroll down a bit so you can see this part that I want to talk about. These vertical grid lines. Most of the time, grid lines aren't really necessary. I mean, it's going to depend on what chart you're creating. But in this chart, given that we just put the win percent out to the right of all of our bars, we don't really need these grid lines anymore. So let's get rid of them because they're just extraneous. So again, I'm going to right click in the blank space of my chart. You'll see I have an option to format the worksheet. So if we just select format worksheet, you see you have a lot of different format options over here. The one we're interested in is lines. So if you click on lines, you'll see it opens up a drop box here. Right now for grid lines, it has multiple. I'm just going to click that arrow and select off and select off again. And then you'll see it changes right here. So now our grid lines disappear and we have a cleaner chart for overall rankings. And we're done. So we'll move on to our next chart, which is going to be that scatter plot of sugar versus win. So just down here in the left, actually I should pause. Do you guys have any questions at all? I'll just keep an eye on the chat. If you want to throw a question up there, I'll see if I can answer it. In the meantime, just down here, we're going to click this button right here for new worksheet. It's going to pop up a new sheet. And like I always do, we're going to start off with renaming it. So we'll do a right click. We'll rename this sugar versus wins. All right, so if I remember this sheet, this was a scatter plot, and we want to do how much sugar a candy has versus how many times it won in the voting contest. So just again, over here in our data pane on the left, we're going to take sugar. I'm going to pull that up here and drop it in rows. And then I'm going to take win percent. I'm going to pull that over and drop it in columns. And we have one nice little dot in the upper right-hand corner because it's giving us, obviously, the plot of the total sugar and the total wins of all the things, which is not exactly what we're after. We actually want to see this based on the candy. So what we're going to do now is put the candy name into this chart so that we see a dot for each specific intersection of sugar and win per candy type. So over on the left where we have candy name, again, we're just going to click and drag. We're going to bring it to my favorite area, the marks spot, and we're going to drop it on detail. And there we go. So now you can see we have a dot or a circle for each one of our candy contestants that we have in here. So this is getting better. It's pretty nice. I think all the blues are not the greatest, so we'll probably change that color palette and make it better. Another fun thing that you can do is right now notice all of those circles are the same size. So it could be better if we, let's say, wanted to make the dots change their size based on the sugar content. So that just at first glance will give people a more immediate recognition of high sugar versus low sugar. So we're going to do that. Over here in the left again, you can take sugar. We're just going to drag it to that size box inside the marks pane. Aha. And now you can see that the higher up we go with our sugar percent, the larger that mark becomes for the particular candy. It's just another way to make things a little bit more intuitive, to make the data a little bit more intuitive for your viewers. Okay, so now I want to change the color palette based on the win percent. That's what I did in the main dashboard. So I'm going to take win percent and drop it over here on color. And what it automatically does, you can see just here on the right, is it gives us a gradient. So the lower the win percent, the paler the blue. And then as that win percent goes up, it gets to a darker blue. So you can see things a little bit better. I prefer the orange to blue is sort of the range that I'm using for this particular sheet. So to change that color, again, all we do is come right over here to the color bar, click edit colors, and then you'll see it looks a little bit different this time than it did last time, which is fine. Gives us different options. We're going to click that drop down, scroll on through. You can pick anything you want. I particularly enjoyed the orange to blue diverging for this particular data set. So we're just going to choose that, close it out, get rid of that menu. So it's looking better and better and better. You can see that the lower sugar candies have smaller dots. The lower win percent candies have orange. And then the higher sugar have larger dots, and the higher wins are shifting toward blue. All right, so far so good. I think the next thing that I would like to change, I don't tend to love the open circles when there are a lot of them. So I'm going to come in here to my marks card, and you'll see shape. So if you click on shape, you have all of these different options to choose. You can choose plus signs. I don't think that's great. You can choose the stars. Not my favorite, obviously. Do what works for you or what you think works best actually for your data. For this particular data set, I just liked solid circles. I thought those were nice. So we're going to choose the solid circles, and that'll be our shapes for now. And then the last thing that we're going to do is add a trend line, because it appears just at first glance that as sugar goes up, so does the win percent, but I'd like to know if that's actually real. So let's see if we can add a trend line. So over here on the far left again, where we had our data pane, just to the right of data, you'll see a tab that says analytics. If you click that analytics tab, so many new options turn up for you. We're going to come down here to the model area, and we're going to choose the trend line. So this is a nifty little bit of functionality. We're going to drag a trend line and drop it over onto the chart. But you'll see as you do that, you will get a trend line menu bar that shows up. So you have to drop your trend line onto the type of line that you would want. So I'll show you how that works. You just do a left click to grab it. And as you start to drag, you can see right here, you get a trend line options bar, I'll call it. So we're just going to do a linear trend line for today. So this is where I then drop my trend line. And you'll see it gave me a nice trend line right here. It does confirm that as the sugar goes higher, the win percent also goes higher. So I being me, I would like that trend line to sort of be in the same color palette as the rest of the visualization. So I'm just gonna click on it. My mouse is being real fun. And when you click on it, then you see you have some options to edit, to format, or remove that trend line. So we're gonna go to format. It's pretty straightforward here. From the drop-down box, we have a couple of options. I'm gonna choose a dotted line, or one of my professors calls that ants marching. I'm gonna make it a little bit fatter than it currently is. And just to stick with the color theme, I'm gonna choose that dark orange. Oh, hi, Rihanna. Let me show you. Let me put that link to the data set in for you again. So I just threw the link to the data set in the chat, so hopefully you can grab that and download it, and then you can work through as you'd like to. Okay, so clicking back to our chart, now you can see that we have our sugars versus our wins. We have a nice trend line. Let's see, what else do we want to do here? Let's get rid of these legends over here. Like I said before, I don't tend to love them. I'm sure I will at some point when I get into fancier, more amazing visualizations. I'll need those legends. But for now, we're just going to do most of the information that we need to get across to people. We're going to do it with our titles and our actual visuals. All right, so let's change this title again. I'm just going to double click on it. Open this up. I'm going to call it Sugar for the Win. I like to ask questions in my titles. We'll put it at 18 again. Cindy, that's such a good question. You absolutely can create a subcategory. And so I didn't do that on this particular dashboard, but I will show you. We'll create a sheet and we'll do a subcategory, and we'll do like all chocolate candies or all fruity candies. Absolutely. Okay, so is there anything else on this one that I wanted to do? I don't think so. So we're going to call this chart done. Sorry, my brain's just going on to your question, Cindy. You could, if you wanted to, I'm going to come back over here to data. You could add a filter. So you could say, grab chocolate right here and drop it onto the filters bar. I won't do it just now, but you can grab chocolate onto that filters bar and then select for chocolate. And then what you'll see here in this sugary for the win area is only the chocolate candies. Why don't we just do that for fun anyway? We'll put chocolate there. Choose attribute. Yes, this is a little bit funky. So this is good because it doesn't behave the way I expected it to the first time when I was playing around with this. So because we're dealing with a binary and it's just zeros and ones, it thinks of it as a continuous line when it sort of pulled it in. And we need it to be discrete instead of continuous. So I'm going to cancel out of here. I'm going to come over here back to my data pane on chocolate. I'm going to click the little drop down arrow on the right. And about halfway down, you can see convert to discrete. So I'm going to choose that. It's going to think for a hot minute. You'll notice that chocolate changed from green to blue. So it changed from a measure to a dimension. Just an interesting thing to keep in mind as you're messing around with your data. So now we can pull chocolate back over to filters. We're going to choose attribute again. This time you'll see that we have some choices that we can select from. We want to pick only chocolatey candies. So I'm going to say we only want to keep things that have a 1 in the chocolate column. That means yes, it's a chocolate candy, and then click OK. So keep your eye then out here on our data set as we choose OK. And it changed significantly. So we lost all of our fruity candies, which interestingly were the lower win percent. So if you hover over any of these bars, you see we have Reese's, we have Whoppers, Tootsie Pop. All of these have some component of chocolate in them. Yeah, so that's kind of an easy way that you can add a filter. I'm going to take that off for now. So we just go back to our main data set, but that's how you can start creating those categories. And Cindy, there's a way, it's a bit more complex to make it so you can choose well, right now I want to see chocolate, and the next time I want to see fruity, and we'll play around with that a little bit later. Okay, so let's move on to sheets 3 and 4. So if you remember, on the dashboard that I showed you in the lower right-hand corner, there was a place to have a little mini competition between your favorite and someone else's favorite. So we're going to create 2 sheets to enable that choice right now. So let's start with sheet 3. You're welcome, Cindy. Also, if I didn't answer your question, I forgot to say this as well. You guys are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email, and I will happily answer any questions that I can. If I can't, I will find an answer for you because that's my favorite thing to do. So feel free to connect with me at any point for those things. All right. Oh, favorite candy. That's what we're doing next. Okay. So sheet 3. Down here in the bottom, you guys recognize my first step by now. We're going to rename it. I'm going to call it Fave 1. And where the other one will be called Fave 2. All right. So this one, you'll have to bear with me. I'm certain there is a more official way to do what I'm about to show you guys, but I tend to default to efficiency and the fewest number of like clicks and drags and thinking. So the workaround that I figured out to do this is a little bit funky, but it does the exact same thing every time, and I really like consistency as well. So I'll show you how we get this going. Little caveat for the beginning. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take candy name and put it in rows. And then we're going to grab price and put it in columns. So we have our horizontal bars for now. If you remember that dashboard, I don't have it up again right now, but that dashboard showed price and sugar content for each candy. So I've already got price up here in columns. Now I'm going to grab sugar and put that in columns. And it has them side by side, which is not what I want. What I want is a multiple bar chart where sugar and price for one candy are right next to each other. So something that, let's get rid of that. Something that is a lot of fun is this show me button here in the upper right-hand corner. A lot of times I'll hook some data into this worksheet and then just click the show me button and play around with all the different charts and graphs that they have available to see which one actually demonstrates the point that I'm trying to make with my particular data. So this is a really handy area to look at. You'll see some of the charts are grayed out because we maybe don't have the right kind of information for it. Some of them, it shows you that you can make this chart or that chart, whatever you want. So what I want to do is right here, the side-by-side bars. That's what I'm interested in. Notice that they're vertical. So I'm going to go ahead and click it, and it changes our chart to vertical side-by-side bars. If you remember the dashboard that we looked at the beginning, it actually was horizontal, so it was swapped. The easiest way, I think, to do that is to start just changing up here in columns and rows. We'll just change these around. Key point that I didn't notice the first probably 6 times I started changing columns and rows around on here. They don't always stay in the order that you want. So you have to pay particular attention to the order that things are in so that your graph sort of stays looking the way you want it to. What I mean by that is, notice in columns, candy name is first, measure names is second. So when we move things down to rows, we need to keep that order so that it stays sort of sorting the way we want it to sort. So first thing I'm going to do is grab our green measure values, pop it up here. That is definitely not what we want this to look like. Then I'm going to grab candy name and bring it down to rows. And then I'm going to grab measure names and also bring that down to rows. Huzzah! Now we have what we were looking for. So 3 Musketeers, we have its price and its sugar content. 100 Grand, we have the price and the sugar content. So we're starting to see, this is starting to look the way we want it to look. Now, if you recall, on that dashboard, we were only showing one candy at a time for each of those 2 filters. So right now, we're going to create a choosable filter so that your dashboard viewers can pick which candy they want to see at any particular time. Freeze. Oh, did your Tableau Public freeze up? Shoot. Sometimes that happens. I would say just give it a minute. And if you need to start over, which is kind of a bummer, but sometimes you have to like ditch a sheet and start fresh. So like I said, I'll send the step-by-step instructions to you guys so you can walk back through for anything that happened that you happen to like miss, or if your software just gets fritzy while we're working. That way you can catch up with things. Okay, what are we doing? We're doing the filter. Right, so I did that part. We're going to take candy name over here from our data pane. We're going to drag it and drop it onto the filters card. It's just above my favorite marks card. Oh, thanks. I didn't even notice the question section. In the first plot, can we place the win percent values inside the bars? Can we pass these graph data to graph neural network? Well, as far as graph neural network, I have no idea, but I can find out for you later. And as far as placing the win percent values inside the bars, I feel like the answer to that is yes. I don't know exactly how to do it off the top of my head, but we will play around at the end and see if we can't make that work. Okay. Thanks for letting me know that I needed to fix that. That was helpful. Okay, so we're back to the filters. I'm going to show you again how we did that. So we started at candy name. We dropped it right over here onto filter, and it brought us up to this screen. So this is basically what we want. We want to create a filter that gives us the choice of choosing all of these different candies. Okay, that's great. So it's going to take a minute. Oh, and it didn't do what I expected. So I'm going to click that arrow, and here we go. So I'm back over in the filters card. I clicked the arrow next to the candy name pill to get this menu, and I want to turn on show filter. As soon as I do that, over on the right, you'll see now we have our filter. I don't prefer this huge list of candies. I like a filter to be a little bit more simple. You're probably getting that idea at this point. I like to minimize the work that people have to do to fill things. And I bet you're right about that. I think Sukita. Yeah, so we'll go back and check that in a minute. Thank you for that note. Right now, what we're going to do is fix the candy name, this filter. So on the drop-down bar in the upper right, we're just going to change it to a single value drop-down. And now it's very simple. You just get a drop-down list. You can choose to look at whatever one candy you want to look at. So that'll make it so much easier for your dashboard viewers than dealing with that big drop-down list. Okay, so the next piece that we want to do is I'm going to change this filter name. If you noticed, it was called on the dashboard, my favorite candy and your favorite candy. So the place to do that is right here in the filter. So that same drop-down box, we're going to edit the title, and I'm going to call this my fave candy. Per my tendencies, I'm going to center it and bold it and make it 18. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that legend. We don't need that anymore. Let me think. Yes, the last piece that I wanted to do here. So this horizontal axis at the bottom, I want you to pay attention for a minute, if you will, the marks down here and the range of this axis. So right now we're looking at Hershey's Kisses, and it goes to 0.12. If I pick Three Musketeers, notice that it changes to 0.6. I'm pointing that out now because when we're back on that main dashboard and we have the two sort of filters, one on top of the other, if the range of that axis is constantly changing, it makes it harder to visually compare one candy versus the other candy, because they will always those bars will always extend as far out to the right as Tableau thinks it can make it. It tries to maximize the color that's there, sort of the visual part that you can see. So what we want to do is actually fix that x-axis range so that it's always the same. And so that way it's going to make it a more comparable visual between, let's say, Three Musketeers and Tootsie Rolls out on that main dashboard. So to do that, we're just going to right click in that axis and choose Edit Axis. And it's going to bring up this lovely window. So right now, notice it's set to automatic. We're going to set it to fixed. So that's that last radio button that you see there. And the fixed end I'm going to choose is just 1. So I always want it to go from 0 to 1 no matter what. The other thing I'm going to change down here is my axis title. And instead of value, I'm going to call it percentile, because it's showing us either the sort of where the candy lands in the sort of the percentile of sugar amount within the data set, or the win percentile in the data set. So we're just going to let it be percentile and be done. Okay, so that is kind of done and dusted. And now we need to make basically this exact same thing again. So instead of rebuilding it, we're just going to do a nice little duplicate. Actually, I think I also hide this. That is not what I wanted to do. So that's something, I don't know if you guys do this a lot. I like to play with software. One of my professors says you can't break Tableau. This is very, very true. So that thing that I didn't want to happen, I can either do a Control-Z, it undoes it, or you have these handy buttons here in the upper left-hand corner. There's a go back and a go forward. So you can kind of fix problems that you make. There's a way that I hid that, and maybe it's show header. That's what it was. Okay, so I'm going to undo that and show you guys again. I don't want to see Three Musketeers because on our final screen, you'll see we have something a little bit different. So I want to get rid of that right now. So I'm going to right click on it. And instead of saying hide, which hides the entire chart, I'm just going to unselect show header. And that's actually what we were after. Okay. So now to create the section for favorite 2, we're just going to come down here to our sheet tabs. We're going to right click Fave 1. And very obviously, and you guys, I'm certain already are ahead of me on this one, we're just going to click duplicate. And so now we have the exact same sheet, but it's called Fave 1, 2. We're going to rename that to just plain old Fave 2. So that's done. Notice it changed our title up here. We're going to eventually get rid of that, so don't worry about it. The other thing that we want to do on this particular sheet is change the filter name. So the filter name on Fave 1 was called My Fave Candy. So we want the filter name on Fave 2 to be called Your Fave Candy. So I'm going to click that drop down, going to edit that title, and just choose Your Fave Candy. Done. Okay, I just want to make a note to remember to fix those labels. Okay, we'll do that. So now we have all 4 sheets that we want to put on our final dashboard. So what we're going to do now is actually create the dashboard. This is the part where it gets really fun and really kind of futzy is the word I use, because you're just kind of dragging things around, making things fit. It can feel a little bit finicky, but the more you play, the more used to it you get and the more fun it is, I think. So again, just down here on all of our sheet tabs, you'll notice this gives us a new worksheet, that first little button. We don't want that. We want a new dashboard. So I'm just going to click New Dashboard, and voila, here we go. Big blank screen. So starting from the beginning, if you look over here on the left, you'll see your dashboard pane. You have a layout pane. It gives you different options for how you want your dashboard to be laid out. If you want padding or backgrounds or borders and things like that. We're just going to start here with the plain old dashboard. Notice this section called size. If you hit that drop down, it's either fixed, you can make it automatic, you can give it a range, You have lots of options here. I'm pretty sure I like to always choose automatic because then it resizes based on your browser window. So you don't end up with a lot of different blank space. I'm gonna leave it fixed for now. We'll play with it later. All right, so the next section we'll look at is this section. It shows you all of the sheets that you've created so far. So we get to now basically use them like little blocks and kind of place them around the dashboard in whatever way we want. And you'll see as we start to move them, we'll take rankings first because that was the big sort of left column on that dashboard. We're just going to drag it and drop it. And it grays out where that particular sheet is going to live. Right now, since there's nothing else, it's the entire dashboard. Huge. We also want to take sugar versus wins. Let's pull that in. So I'm going to drag that over. You'll notice it grays it out on the left. That would put it to the left, but that's not where I want it. I want it to go not to the top, but to the right. So you just kind of move your mouse around and it'll show you where it's going to drop things. We want to drop it on the right. And there we go. Real quick, I'm just going to come back. Remember I mentioned size. I'm going to change it to automatic. There we go. So now you can see the entirety of both of those sheets that we did. All right, next piece is we want to get those filters in here. So I'm going to take Fave 1, grab it, drag it. You can see the bars just go bananas as it shows you all of the different options. I want to drop it down here in the lower right-hand corner. Notice when I do that, it gives me my filter choice up here in the upper right. We're going to move that in a little bit. For now, you can just leave that. Then I'm going to grab Fave 2, and I want to drop it just over here underneath Fave 1. So there we go. All of the components of the dashboard are in place. It's not great just yet. It still needs a little bit of work. So we're going to start playing around with that at this point. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is move these filters around. So my Fave Candy is attached to Fave 1, if you remember. If you hover over my Fave Candy and give it a click, you'll get some options. You can do some editing, you can delete it, you can pin it to the board where you want it to live. What we're going to do is grab this sort of gray double lines area. My mouse with its terrible green. You're just going to grab that. You're going to drag your filter. Again, you're going to get that lovely gray space. We want to drop it right in front of Fave 1. We're going to do the same thing with the Your Fave Candy filter. Just click on it, grab that double gray bar, and then drag it right over here. And you'll see your dashboard will start to resize. So now we have the Fave Candy filter in front of Fave 1 and Your Fave in front of Fave 2. That's great. I still think this whole area looks a little clunky. So you see every time I move my mouse around, I get different sort of outlines. You can start to drag and kind of rearrange the borders of your, what am I going to call this? Like your blocks that are here. So I'm going to shrink down this filter block, make it a little bit more narrow. Then I'm going to also click on the Your Fave Candy filter block, grab that right-hand border and start dragging it in my imagination. There we go. Notice I'm pointing at my monitor as if you can see me pointing. Do you see that black little arrow just above the line? That's telling me where the My Fave Candy border is so that you can line them up really precisely. Okay, it's looking better. I'm liking what we're doing so far. I think now we don't need this Fave 1 and Fave 2. We don't really need those titles anymore because we have it labeled over here on our filter. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to hide the title. I'm going to do the same thing on Fave 2. Okay, so we're getting there. It's starting to look lovelier. I think, something that is repetitive and probably unnecessary is this percentile axis label, right? So these are both the same thing, price and sugar, price and sugar. We fixed the range on both of these axes, so they're both at 1.0. So we don't really need to have the percentile label on this one. Heads up, I mess this up every single time. I can never remember the right thing. So what I want to do is right click. Do I want to show the header? Okay, let's get rid of it. Let's see how that seems fine. We'll try it out. And now this is so small. I'm just going to drag it a little. There's historically, I've been able to grab and drag. Let me resize my window and see if I can do that. It's not letting me. Okay, that's okay. We'll play around for some other things. Before I do any more futzing, I'm going to take Sugar for the Win, and I'm just going to expand it vertically a little. So we're just going to drag it around to about there. Yep. And that's going to push my fave candy down and your fave candy down. I'm going to also resize those to make them a little bit more equal. There's a way that I would, that's what I want. Yay. I want to drag that down and sort of resize those bars. For some reason, this is not doing, there's clearly an obvious reason for it. So I'll explain what what I'm managing right now. And if you guys know how to fix it, by all means, throw it into the chat, because I'm certain there are people here who know more about Tableau than I do, have more experience. So when I originally created this dashboard, I was able to grab this bottom section right here and drag it down and expand those bars to make them taller. I wonder, it might have something to do with the settings on the actual sheet where I built those filters. So that's what I'm going to do, is pop over here to Fave 1 and see, in fact, what my sizing is set up as. So I think if I right click here, maybe not. Let me go to Worksheet. Huh. What am I missing? Well, there's normally a way to sort of shift the way it fits. And for some reason, I am not being able to find that right now. Well,
going in 2 minutes.
Oh, did you say I only have 2 minutes left? Oh, no. I think, let's try this and see if that changes what I want to do. Fit. Aha! You guys, we found it. If you click around enough times, eventually you find what you need. So back on the dashboard, I clicked this tiny arrow right here for more options. And there's a fit option. Right now it's set to standard, and I want it to say entire view. That is what I was after. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here. Fit entire view. Et voila. All right, that's a little bit better. We're going to call it good. So this is our dashboard that we built. Now, I am particularly partial to interaction. I like to have interactive things. So I love clicking buttons. I like doing drop-down lists. I like doing interesting filters. So one of the things that I think would be kind of fun is if we put on here an option to look at only nut-free candies. So what we're going to do, rather than filtering all of this, we're going to create a second dashboard that only shows nut-free candies. Then we'll put a button on dashboard 1 that says nut-free candies. And when we click that button, it'll toss us to the nut-free candy dashboard. And then on that nut-free dashboard, we'll put a button that sends us back to this main dashboard. Just because that seems like a lot of fun. Why wouldn't we want to do that? So let's go back. We're going to have to go and duplicate all of our original sheets. This is kind of how it works. We're going to duplicate all the sheets. We're going to add filters to the new duplicated sheets so that we're going to have the nut version and the nut-free version of each chart. and then we'll sort of build our new dashboard. In the meantime, let's pop over here to rankings. And who was, I don't remember who said it in the chat, some very, very clever person, Sukita, changing the alignment of our labels. So right here, let's try to change those labels and put them in the bars and see what that looks like. So I'm going to click on label and click edit label. That doesn't seem to be it. I wonder if I click it out here. Nope, that doesn't seem to be it. Nope, also not it. Okay, well, I'll have to figure that out. And then when I send you guys, I'll include it in the instructions. I'll just, I'll do a little edit tonight and include those in. And that way, when you guys go to the link, you'll see how to add that sort of in the bar, since I can't figure it out on the fly. Okay, moving on. So what we're going to do is create the duplicate of our rankings sheet. So we're just going to right click that, say duplicate. I'm going to rename it and call it NF rankings. So that way we know it's our nut-free rankings. Okay. Now then, to make this nut-free, what we're going to do is add a filter, just like we did before when I sort of walked you guys through adding that chocolate filter. We're going to do that now, but we're going to make it the nuts filter. So if you remember when we were working with chocolate, it came over as a continuous numeric variable, and that's not what we need. We need it to be a discrete choice. So what we're going to do before anything else is we're going to just come here to the nuts variable. We're going to click on that arrow. We're going to convert it to a discrete variable. Now what we can do is take nuts, drop it on that filters card. It'll bring up this menu again, where we choose that we want to filter based on the attribute itself. Just click next, and we want 0 this time. So we only want it to show us candies that have no in their column for whether or not they contain nuts. So we're going to click 0 and OK. And then hopefully what will happen is what you saw just happen. All of the Reese's candies went away because those are all peanut buttery. There's no Snickers on here anymore. There's no Baby Ruth. Anything that had a nut product in it, according to this database, is now gone. So let's change our title, and we'll call it overall nut-free rankings, just to make it really, really clear. And then we'll move on to our next sheet, which is sugar versus wins. So this is going to be the exact same process. This becomes really sort of straightforward as you start doing it over and over. You're like, oh yeah, easy peasy pie. So we're going to right click on sugar versus wins. We're going to do a duplicate. Then we're going to right click again and rename it. We'll call it nut free sugar versus wins. And say, okay. I think we'll leave this title the same. The next thing we're going to do is put that filter back onto this sheet. So we take nuts from our data pane over on the left. We drag it to the filters card. Here we have that menu again. We want to filter based on the attribute. We're going to choose next. We click 0 because again, we want no nuts, and then we click OK. And you'll see that our data set is considerably smaller. Again, we're missing this whole area that was all of the Reese's candies here in the upper right. And then maybe, do we have enough time? We've got enough time. Instead of doing the 2 filters, why don't we make a new chart? Let's do it. We're going to make a new worksheet. Let's call it NF chocolates. What we're going to build here is, let's just, I'm doing this on the fly, so We'll see how it all goes. We're going to look at the candies that are chocolate but don't have any nuts in them. So that's what we're going to dig around through and see here. So let's just do this. Let's grab candy name. I'm just going to drop it into the middle and see what happens. I got my list. Let's grab win percent because I always like to see how things are ranked. We'll drop that here as well. Well, we'll just drop it up into columns. We got our bars, but we already have one of these. I don't want to look at it exactly like that, do I? No. So what I'm going to do is let's put our chocolate filter on before anything else. So over here in data pane, we'll grab chocolate, bring it up here to filters, choose attribute, and next. This time we're going to pick one because we want all of our chocolatey candies. Okay, so now we have only chocolate things. I see right away that we have Almond Joy in here and Baby Ruth, which are nut candies. So we need to add that nuts filter. So back to the data pane, we'll grab nuts, drop that onto our filters. Same thing, you guys are pros at this by now. We're going to pick attribute and next. We want no nuts. Click OK. This is looking better. So none of these candies have an obvious nut in them. So we are pretty good to go at this point. Great. But like I said, we already have a horizontal bar chart. So let's look over here again at Show Me in the upper right-hand corner and see what we have there. Let's just hover over things and see what they do. We have too many pieces of information for a pie chart. You don't want to do a pie chart if you have more than like 5 or 6. So that's kind of not what we want. I don't like stacked bar. We already have some dots. Let's try a tree map. Aha, that's kind of fun. Okay, so now we have this tree map and it's showing us which of the nut-free chocolate candies are most popular. It looks like Twix is the winner chicken dinner so far of this. Okay, I think instead of blue, maybe we would use a brown color gradient for this, given that we're asking about specifically chocolate candies. So let's pop over here to the color card, sort of on the marks card. We'll hit that color tab. We'll edit our colors. And I'm thinking there will be, and there is a brown option. Great. Okay, so now we have our nut-free chocolate candies, and they're kind of listed for us, sort of formatted in order of which ones are most popular. I love it. All right. Let's hide that legend. We don't need that anymore. If you want, we could put the win percent on there so that people can see what the numbers are just for kicks, or we can leave it off. We'll just leave it off for now. I think then we have everything we need for our nut-free board. I'm going to move all my nut-free sheets together. So nut-free rankings, nut-free sugars, and nut-free chocolate. Okay, so those are all where they need to be, and we can make our new dashboard, our secondary dashboard. All right, so that's our new worksheet button down at the bottom is where I'm working again. We're going to come to the, looks like a window pane with the plus sign. That's our new dashboard. And before I go, I'm just going to check the questions and see, we did that, we did that, we did that. How we set automatic for the worksheet. Yeah, that was probably a long time ago, Sukita. I hope I answered that, but if not, I'll show you again. On your dashboard, it's right over here under size. Yep, under size. You click the drop down, and where it says fixed, you can choose automatic. I think on the worksheet, let me come back here. Where did we do it on the worksheet? Oh, on the worksheet, I did it sort of within the dashboard. Sukita, I'll show you that in a hot minute when we get back to there. Okay, so dashboard 2. Here we go. So you guys will remember how we did all that dragging and dropping before. It's the same thing happening now. So instead of rankings, we're going to get nut-free rankings and pull that over and drop it. And we're going to get nut-free sugar versus win and put it on the right. And then we'll get nut-free chocolates and drop it just down here. How nice. I don't know what this is, but let's get rid of it. Okay, everything is kind of filled in. I notice immediately that I did not change the nut-free chocolates title. Something that's kind of fun is you can make changes in the dashboard instead of having to go back to the sheet, or vice versa, whatever makes you happy. So for now, we're just going to double click here in the chocolates and we'll change it to say nut-free chocolate faves. It's good. Highlight it, make it bold and center and make it 18. And we're done. Okay, glorious. So these are all filtered to be the nut-free candies. So we have dashboard 1 and dashboard 2, and now all we want to do is just create a navigation button to move between those two dashboards. Now, if you look at the dashboards the way they exist right now, there's not a lot of free space for adding a button. So what I ended up doing is creating a title that had a lot of blank space on the ends, and that's where we're going to make our button live. Okay, so right now I'm on dashboard 2, which I'm going to rename real quick nut-free dashboard. Great. I'm going to rename dashboard 1 main dashboard. And we're going to start working on that main dashboard. So that's where you want to live for right now. So the first thing we're going to do is add a title to the dashboard itself. That's going to give us obviously a title and some space for a button. So the easiest thing for me on this is to come up to this very top menu selection area. You click dashboard, and about halfway down, you'll see an option for show title. So you can click that, and you'll see it says main dashboard. Again, it just grabs the name that you type at the bottom. I'm going to double click in there, and I'm going to call it Candy Favorites. And we'll bold, and we'll do 22, and we'll center. And we'll say okay. All right, so now we have this title area, which gives us some blank space for putting a button. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So again, I'm going to click in that title, grab the lower border, and just drag it down a bit. Okay, so that gives me the space that I need. Now the navigation buttons. I tried about 4 different ways to do this, and there's an actually very easy way that Tableau gives you. So we're obviously going to do the easy way. Back over here in our kind of main area where we work, down at the bottom, you'll see an objects section. And in the objects section, there is a navigation option. So this gives us different, obviously, navigation things. So we're going to grab a navigation and drag it. Oh no, that's the key. I forgot. You notice when I dragged it, it's going to try and snap it to the grid. I don't want it to snap to the grid. I want it to be floater because I want to sit it right here. Well, I want to sit it right here in my title. And to do that, I need it to float. Well, the easy way to make a navigation button float is to hold down the shift key on your keyboard while you're dragging it. That'll make it an auto floater. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and grab navigation. And now see it's not snapping anywhere. I can just drop it. Oh, I totally did not do that in a smooth and suave fashion. Let's try again. There we go. So there's my little navigation button. I'm going to grab those gray bars and bring it up here. So now we have our navigation object. We just have to tell it what to do. So to do that, I'm going to click that little arrow, and we're going to say edit the button. So it's a pretty straightforward menu in here. You guys can walk yourself through it. It's pretty intuitive, actually. So we want it to navigate to the nut-free dashboard. So when someone clicks that button, they're going to go to the nut-free dashboard. The button style, we're going to leave it a text button today, but I just want to show you, you can create an image. So just out of curiosity, when you click image, you get to choose one. You can pull it from your machine. You can download something. So you could make it a picture of like a peanut with the red slash sign through it if you wanted to. We're going to leave it text for today. Our title is going to be Nut-Free Candies. That's easy enough. I'm going to make the background medium orange and the border around it is going to be dark orange and a little bit fatter. So you can just play around with all these kinds of things and figure out what you think looks nice and et cetera, et cetera. So we're navigating to the Nut-Free dashboard. It's a text button. We're calling it Nut-Free Candies. Here we go. It's very, very nice in time. So now the next thing we're going to do is come back to the Nut-Free dashboard. We're going to repeat that process to make a button that sends us back to main. So Nut-Free dashboard. Our first steps were showing the title. We're going to call this Nut-Free Candies. I don't remember what we called it on the other side, but we'll just call it that for now. We'll bold and center and 22. Make it a little bit taller. And then again, we're going to do that navigation button. So quick reminder, if you hold down your shift key while you're dragging and dropping, it'll be an automatic float, which is what we want. And we can reposition it. This time, once you drop your button, you're going to click that down arrow, edit your button. When you're inside this screen, what we want to do now is navigate to the main dashboard. Still a text button. We're going to change this. I'm going to call it back to main. I think I'll make it blue, just in sort of sticking with my all blue theme, blues and oranges that we have going on. My border will be dark blue and medium. And okay. So now we have back to main. Now, here's something that is annoying to me, but it's not annoying. There's a reason for it. Your buttons won't work in this sort of build view. So when you're on the main dashboard, if you click Nut-Free Candies, absolutely nothing happens. But you have to trust me. When you publish it, then it will work. That's when your buttons go. But you can't really test it out in this view. You can test it out if you're, but I haven't done it in Tableau Public. If you're in like published or saved and you have it sort of fully functional, then those buttons will work. And I can show you on my screen. I'm actually going to publish this real quick. Let's pretend like you're done. If you're all working in here, we'll go ahead and publish, guys. So up here in the upper right of your screen, you've got a blue button that says Publish As. So you can click that, and we will call this the DSC Candy Trials. I think that's all we need to do at this point. We don't want to show our sheets as tabs. We just want people to see the actual dashboards. And then we'll go ahead and click Publish. And now you fingers crossed, you wait to see what happens. Hey, look at that. It worked. So now we are on, are we? Oh, we're still in the edit screen. Let me come over here and cool. I guess I have to pop out of here. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to close it down. So this is the DSC Candy Trials. Here we are, guys. So you can see the board that we just created. Now I'm going to really fingers crossed and push Nut-Free Candies. It worked. Okay, so immediately you'll notice, did you see it jump to the left? I didn't change the Nut-Free Candies dashboard to automatically resize. So that's something that is nice, that you need to sort of, it's a good reminder that when you make a formatting change, if you're wanting things to sort of be consistent, you need to do those same settings on all of your sheets, all of your dashboards. It can be helpful to keep notes while you're working and keep track of what you're doing. But that's one way to make it a little bit more seamless for your users. But here we can click back to main again, and it jumps back and forth. Okay, so that all went pretty well. That's pretty much the gist of the whole presentation, sort of walking through the download and the build and all the step-by-steps. I'll show you guys real quick. Feel free if you have any questions to pop them over there in the chat or the Q&A section. But I'll show you just really quickly if you can see. I think, yeah, this is sort of the work through sheet that I pulled together for you guys. So I'll put a link to this in the chat as well. But this has step-by-step. You can see it takes you step 1, step 2, step 3 with the blue numbers, and then the orange circles and arrows will show you where to drag things and where to drop them. And then you have the actual steps listed over here on the right. So this just kind of walks you through from the very beginning, creating all of those sheets and building the dashboard, and it will take you through step by step. It doesn't have the directions for the navigation buttons. It started to get really kind of clunky, and I wanted to make sure I had something for you that worked. But like I said, I can try to add those in at a later point, or if you forget how to do it and want some help, just shoot me an email on that. But I will make sure to get that to you guys. And that's the gist of that. So we won't show you any more of those things. We'll come back to the candy trials. And then if you have any questions or if you want just about anything at all, feel free to pop that into chat. I will say this, just in closing, I've noticed a lot of people get nervous working in Tableau or really with any of these sort of software programs because they, I don't know, there's this pressure to get it right, yeah, and to know what you're doing. I have found in my learning process, specifically with Tableau, that what is most helpful is I just try stuff, and probably 60% of the time, first out of the gate, it does not do what I think it's going to do because I'm new, right, to Tableau. I'm not like a 5 or 6 year visualization expert with Tableau just yet. I will be. So that's okay. When things don't go the way you expect them to, just click Control Z or hit that undo button and start over and just keep trying. I will say that the Tableau community is amazingly helpful. They have so many great tips and hints. You can Google pretty much any question you have, like dashboard navigation button Tableau, and you'll get so many different examples that people have built with step-by-step walkthroughs. You can look at the viz of the day. Did we look at that at all? Let me come back to Tableau Public and we'll show you guys that. The Tableau viz of the day is really interesting. It's the first thing you see when you come to Tableau Public. And usually it's something that's created by a user. You can scroll on down here and you can see different visualizations that people have created. They're really quite interesting. And most of the time, well, not most of the time, some of the time, I wonder, let's click on this one and see. It has a download. So this looks like maybe it's in Italian, which I do not know, but it's quite lovely. It's like stipends, media stipends. I'm not sure. Anyway, point being, what you can do here is over here on the right, there's a download button. And if you click that, you can download the image itself. You can download a PDF of what this visualization is. And some of them down here at the bottom will have this Tableau workbook button enabled. And that lets you download the actual workbook itself. And you can see how this data analyst or data scientist built the visualization that they published. That is an amazing space from which to learn sort of how to do other things and new bits of functionality within Tableau and what you're trying to accomplish. So I highly recommend that you play around in the viz of the day and check out what's going on there. Yep, there's another question about putting the win percent inside the bars. I was not able to make that work today, but like I said, I will absolutely figure out that step by step. I'll add it to the directions, and I will make sure that you guys have that when you're done. That's what I need to do. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. And then what I will do is grab the link to that instruction sheet. And send that to you guys as soon as I can find my stop sharing button. Oh, yeah. You guys can just see my exciting Google Drive. I don't think that's actually what I want to send you guys. Well, we'll come back to it. I'll make sure that you get those slides. Sorry for that little confusion right there. I don't think I can share it outside my organization, but I will fix that. I will make sure that you have access to the directions, to the PDF of that information and everything that you need for moving forward. So thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Like I said, if you want to contact me, feel free to do so. Dual axis chart. Yeah, dual axis is a great idea. I think that's in regards to putting the win percent inside the bars. Dual axis is a little fancier than I had in mind for today, but I bet that's actually the right answer. So thanks so much, AB Commendatore. That's very helpful information. I'm going to put my email in the chat. You guys can shoot me any questions that you have, like I said, and I'll make sure that you get those PDFs. And I hope you guys all have a glorious day. Thanks so much for joining us. See you later.